Hello everyone, welcome to the second Living Lab Discovery webinar organized by the FORLIVS Task Force team. So FORLIVS stands for Forest Living Labs for Sustainable Climate, and we are a task force within IUFRO, which is the International Union of Forest Research Organization, a global network dedicated to promoting forest science and collaboration worldwide. Our task force is currently developing a network called CRAAFT, which is a climate-ready and adapted agroforest and forests. So it's a pleasure to have you today and to meet you virtually for the first time for some person. And thank you for joining us. First, let me introduce myself. So I'm Claire Depardieu. I'm going to facilitate this meeting today. I'm a tree physiology researcher at Natural Resources Canada, located in Fredericton in Canada. And I'm also the new coordinator of the task force. So I can see that Philippe Rosenberg is present here in the meeting. So hi, Philippe. And just to mention, Philippe was the former coordinator of the task force, and as he's retiring right now, I'm going to be the new coordinator. And I think it's official from the beginning of this month. So thank you for everything, Philippe, and for your work. And he's going, of course, to stay with us for a while as a co-deputy coordinator of the task force. So before we begin this webinar and dive into the amazing content, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. So the FORLIVS working group is hosting this meeting, which I'm facilitating from my location in Fredericton. We are respectfully acknowledge that New Brunswick is situated on a traditional, unceded and unsurrendered territories of the Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and the Pescoto-Mutaki peoples. The FORLIVS working group particularly recognize the value of indigenous, local, and also traditional knowledge systems and practices in addressing climate change. So during this session, we ask you to keep your microphones please muted at all times. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or write a question on the chat. Mart will be selecting the question, of course. And if you are comfortable, try to turn on your camera, of course. We would like to see your smile today. So this session is the second of our Discovery webinar series. And every 2 months, in fact, we are organizing webinars to highlight established or even emerging living labs, research projects, and all that. And today we have the pleasure to have speakers to present 3 sister projects. So, in few words, those are 3 sister projects called AfroGrow, GALILEO, and TRANS-SAHARA, which are funded under the Horizon Europe call, which was in 2024. These collaborative initiatives share common objectives, that is to say, advancing agroforestry management in support of climate change, adaptation, and mitigation across Africa. So we're going to start with the first speaker, Ioannis, and I know that my pronunciation is pretty good, who is the scientific coordinator of the AfroGrow project. So Ioannis is a hydrogeologist and a soil scientist at the Eratosthenes Center of Excellence, where he leads research in the land cluster of the Environment and Climate Department. His work connects environmental observation, soil health, and land-climate interactions through living labs that translate science into practice. He coordinates several Horizon Europe projects, including, of course, AfroGrow, Nemesis, Landsheet, and Nostradamus, focusing on soil monitoring, co-creation, and data-driven decision support to strengthen climate resilience, also restore biodiversity, and promote sustainable land use. So with the 6 living labs in this project for research and knowledge sharing, this project is co-creating effective solutions for sustainable farming, inclusive growth, and also gender equity. Whenever you're ready, Yonis, you can start and share your presentation. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much, Claire, and as well, very happy for being here today, especially first of all regarding the international perspective, and as well with our sister projects that we share a common aims regarding the agroforestry and about sustainable African growth. So, regarding the AfroGrow project, is about co-creating living labs for sustainable agroforestry and climate resilience across Africa. So regarding the consortium is consists from 25 partners across 9 European countries and 6 African countries. While the main focus, of course, will also be except having the aspect of advancing the agroforestry across the African Union, as well as strengthening the European Union and African Union partnership, as well as extending that at the international context. Then here you can see the mapping about our partners and our consortium, mainly as well focusing that the main focus areas across the African Union, in our case, is across Ethiopia, Kenya, Zambia, Botswana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal, while there are also some additional partners from Europe that also support this European Union, African Union partnership for agroforestry. Then, regarding the general about the overarching approach about the AfroGrow project, based on what is as well I have checked regarding the task force, we're also sharing the same principles about the living labs. So about the co-creation, about the co-designing and co-implementation. Of course, another aspect is about the co-ecological innovation that we have across the living labs that will be established, while the third common definition of our living labs based by European Network of Living Labs is about open innovation ecosystems through real-life environments, about that are based on ecosystem co-creation approach and integrating research and innovation activities, but also based on the needs and the challenges that the local communities are facing of. So basically, saying as well, based on the Sustainable Development Goals, our living labs and our experimental sites across the African Union will focus mainly, of course, on advancing the agroforestry, but also what is the multifunctional role of agroforestry in regards to the climate regulation, about floods and wildfire preservation, about carbon sequestration, biodiversity conservation, critical aspect about the food provision, but also how the ethnopharmacology and the other sources could also be supporting further the local communities, the nutrient cycling, and the soil water filtering. Then, in regards to the specifically about the AfroGrow mission and vision, the first of all is about the mission of the AfroGrow project is about safeguarding the food security, safety, and sovereignty across the African Union, particularly across the 6 regions that we have the establishment of the living labs, but also being extended to climate adaptation mitigation, the human well-being, and the socio-economic development of these local communities through the co-establishment of our 6 living labs that will also be this cross-collaboration, but also sharing the same principles of the co-creation about the responsible innovation, low-cost technologies, and how we can also support the reduction of the gender inequalities across the African Union. Then regarding to the vision, that has to do with the most long-term aspect of the project, has to do with sustainable and resilient agroforestry systems across the African Union, providing solutions that have been co-created and co-designed with the local communities for having a more environmental friendly, healthy, and diversified practice and products and processes across the ground. Now, regarding the main objectives of the AfroGrow project, is first of all is having capacity for providing through the 6 living labs availability of qualitative but also quantitative data in regards to climate change and adaptation mitigation, the multifunctional roles of agroforestry, and as well regarding the sustainable agriculture. Then improving the management of agroforestry systems, so to provide solutions that have been derived from the stakeholder, based on the stakeholders' feedback, provide regarding conventional and agroecological practices, and including as well agropastoral systems across the African Union. Having enhanced capacities of the local communities in regards especially to the economic and aspects in regards to the cost-benefit analysis and the environmental performance of the different management practices that have been selected. and then as well having a more assessment, strengthening agroforest innovation in regards to selecting suitable plants and animal species for agroforestry in the African Union based on data-based evidence regarding the soil health, regarding climate change and climate change mitigation adaptation, about water resources management and human well-being. Then we also have to explore carbon farming, particularly in regards to the perspective of business opportunities, and analyzing the roles of further exploiting carbon farming in regards to achieving climate neutrality, while we also have the aspects of promoting knowledge and capacity building and establishing the local experimental sites. Here you can see the 6 living labs that are being across the African Union from the side of the AfroGrow project. So we have one is in Ethiopia, we have in Kenya, that also well Sima, our colleague from CRAAFT, that will also present, from Zambia, Botswana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal, each of them with diverse needs and challenges based on the local needs and based on the local community's feedback, but also providing a different context across the African Union that will be able to be replicated across other regions. General about the outcomes and potential as mandatory to have these outcomes. First of all, it's about the databases based for optimal plant and animal selections across these 6 regions. We have the demonstration sites that will be established that across the agroforestry that will potentially be advanced into lighthouses based on the exemplary performance, while also providing impact assessment for different management practices that will be selected with the local communities. At the same time, we also have the stakeholder engagement and how we can, another perspective, how we can sustain this engagement of the stakeholders across these 6 regions, these 6 living labs, and providing as well agroforestry digital tools that will also be presented from my colleague, and crowdsourcing applications that could support the engagement, but also regarding the capacity of enriching the databases that with very valuable data that could be used for monitoring and for impact assessment of different management practices. And of course, we also have the training activities as well to have this cross exchange of knowledge with the African Union, but also vice versa, what we can also learn as a European Union from the African Union management practices, and finally, the agroforestry lighthouse network in the African Union. Then, regarding what will also be done across the 6 living labs, will be a harmonized monitoring framework that will have many different components. So we have the aspect of animal health and food security, ethnopharmacology, of course, the aspect of soil health and carbon sequestration, the plant and crop responses about water security management, the micronutrients, microclimate, socioeconomic aspects, of course, the aspect of pests, pollinators, and plant diseases, disease risk assessment, and finally, one of the main as well priorities about reducing the inequalities and how the living labs could be the exemplary paradigms for the rest of the region regarding how we can achieve this aspect. Another aspect is about the how we can support as living labs the policies and the further expansion of partnership. I will not go further on this, but also another one important topic is how we can extend European Union strategies to us with their international component, and how they could also support some other African Union strategies and be aligned and for having a harmonized impact. And of course, the aspect of having the reducing the inequalities, and especially in regards for shaping a sustainable development. Here you can also see the different multi-actor platforms, actually, because one of the main aspects of the living labs is insist on the living labs and the stakeholder engagement and the continuously co-creation aspects. So we have the stakeholders at the pilot level, at national level, at African Union level, but also we have the international potentially collaboration with other stakeholders, except only this that we have already mapped. Now it's also reasons why we will also think about new opportunities and new partnership that is not only about the local communities, but also the international extent. It's about having as well the co-shaping sustainable agroforestry solutions in the African Union, but also how this knowledge can also be generated and extended outside the African Union, boosting the business potential in regards to the carbon farming, but also regarding to the agroforestry management practices, testing and scaling management practices that maybe have been in another regions and could be replicated across the living labs, assess the local and global value chains in regards to the agroforestry, building knowledge and skills. And one of the main topics and likely that we like to use is to make the voice of the stakeholders to count across the living labs. So thank you very much from my side. So I will give the floor, if that's okay, with my colleague.
Thank you so much, Yanis, for the overview of this amazing project, AfroGrow. And maybe we won't have a lot of time for questions, but just a comment. You mentioned something like you want to expand this kind of network, Europe network, with an international component, and precisely here we are with the task force. So we are currently creating an international network at this stage. So we are at the very beginning of the project too, because our task force just started officially in last year, to be more precise, in March, 2025. So maybe we can work in synergy, of course, to make exchanges and trying to develop the different networks that we want to expand, basically. So thank you so much. And now, as you mentioned, Dr. Zampella Pitaki will present. She's a representative of the Kenyan Living Lab from the AfroGrow project, and she's from the World Agroforestry C4 CRAAFT, and will contribute to the AfroGrow project and present this Living Lab. So just give me 1 second, Zampella. I'm going to introduce yourself a little bit. Dr. Piketty is a soil scientist at C4 CRAAFT, specializing in soil spectroscopy. She holds a PhD in soil physics from Aris University and completed postdoctoral research at the University of Wisconsin-Madison on spectral data harmonization. She is actively involved in the C4 CRAAFT Soil Spectrometry Spectroscopy Lab, leads founded research and innovative projects, and supports living labs focused on data-driven soil health assessment. So whenever you're ready, Zampella, the floor is yours.
So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and the floor to present. And so hello, everyone. The next 10 minutes, I would like to take you to Makueni County in southeastern Kenya. A semi-arid landscape, erratic rainfall, degrading soils, and communities living daily with climate uncertainty, but also resilience, innovation, and strong local spirit. This is, the story of the Kenyan Living Lab and how through AfroGrow C4 CRAAFT connects local realities with continental solutions. So let me take you back to Makueni. In the heart of Makueni, communities have long battled between pressures of soil degradation and erratic rainfall. And these challenges are not abstract. They affect daily life, declining farm productivity, water scarcity, and limited income generation. So when we arrived, we didn't bring solution as AfroGrow first. We asked a question: why do you want a living lab here? And the answers reflected real priorities. So restore soil health, reduce erosion, improve water availability, strengthen food security, empower women and youth. So it started with soil, but it was really about communities. So Makueni is highly vulnerable to drought and land degradation, yet it also plays rich in indigenous knowledge, innovation, and agroforestry potential. And our focus is clear: regenerative soil restoration, improved water use efficiency, livelihood resilience, climate smart practices, knowledge exchange beyond Makueni. So our work is locally anchored, but it speaks to broader African and beyond challenges. Local roots, wide impact, as the motto said in my slide. Of course, building a living lab is not without challenges. We face climate unpredictability, limited infrastructure, gender inequalities, youth disengagement, fragmented knowledge systems, policy disconnect, but these challenges shaped our approach. And we grow through what we go through. So now regarding the strengths and the opportunities, at the same time, Makueni offers powerful strengths. So strong community cohesion, women's cooperatives driving agroforestry, youth groups seeking alternatives, supportive local governance, and increasing national support for restoration and soil health. The soil may be dry, but the spirit here is fertile. And that spirit fuels our living lab. So the Kenya Living Lab thrives because innovation grows in shared hands. We use community workshop, crowdsourcing data collection tool that I'm going to present in about a minute, co-learning spaces engaging women and youth, yes. And stakeholders are not here beneficiaries. They are co-creators. So they are creating with us. And our farmers, youth, women's group, county government, NGOs, market actors, schools, and of course, our AfroGrow partners. This is not research done on communities, it is innovation built with them. So now you can see, let me zoom out to the broader role of CRAAFT. So our role is catalytic. We connect the local action with scientific excellence. We use innovation and specifically through soil spectroscopy, remote sensing, and machine learning, we can provide, soil health indicators very fast, very robust, cheap. And here you can see we host the largest soil spectral library in the world, and our models are global. And here you can see an example of the power of soil spectroscopy. These models are built for over 30 countries, over 15,000 reference soil samples, so with wet and dry chemistry data. And we are using deep learning models. The validation, you can see R square above 0.9 for key soil parameters. So this enables soil suitability maps for agroforestry. And also, we've used our models with Earth observation as well in order to produce dynamic maps. So what does that mean in practice? It means farmers, governments, and stakeholders can make evidence-based decisions. We move from guesswork to precision, from local experimentations to scalable continental systems. So another role that at CRAAFT we have for the living labs is part of something. So the Kenya Living Lab is part of something bigger. We have to establish a Pan-African agroforestry hub. So a space for knowledge exchange, capacity building, stakeholder networking, carbon farming opportunities, entrepreneurship, innovation, scaling. This is how local laboratories become continental platforms. So now I will drive you, and if you want, you can scan the QR code to the Regreening Africa app that we will utilize it in the AfroGrow project. It's developed by the CRAAFT scientists. And here, to close, for example, the loop between action and data, the Greening Africa is a crowdsourced monitoring tool. It allows us to track number of farmers reached, hectares under restoration, practices implemented, performance indicators, and the most important, because as we all know in Africa, we're facing problems with the connectivity. So it works offline. It is free, and it provides near real-time information. This transforms reporting into learning, and learning into adaptive management. And here you can see some figures, but when you will download the app, you can see the several modules. For example, we have tree planting, nursery, rangeland engagement. And here you can see how can use the app in order to get benefit. In order to conclude, so the home message is what we have learned: co-creation drives resilience. CRAAFT plays a key role bridging research, innovation, and local action. That enables smarter decision, And while the Kenyan Living Lab is locally rooted, it contributes to a growing Pan-African movement for resilient and productive landscapes. This is not the end of the story. The journey, of course, continues from soil to systems, from Makueni to Africa and beyond, from local restoration to continental transformation. So thank you for working with us through the story of the Kenyan Living Lab and the role of C4 CRAAFT in AfroGrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zampella. Your presentation was very, very amazing. So thank you. I've prepared some questions for you, and in fact, the one was associated to Yanis, but instead, I would be interested in know more about the Pan-Canadian Agroforestry Hub. So as far as I can understand, we are at the very beginning of this adventure. So could you tell us a little bit more about this? What is the plan? Do you see this as different platforms or a collaborative platform that would be developed for each living labs, or instead of, a hub is generally like you're trying to centralize things, So can you tell us more a little bit about this hub?
Yes, so actually it would be like a centralized platform. And I don't know if you are familiar with Coalition Action for Soil Health. So the CASH, that is international initiative about the soil health. And so, yes, we will use cash in order, to develop this Pan-Africa agroforestry hub. And this will be at the same time centralized for all living labs, but will take into account, and respect each living lab. And yes.
I understand.
We are at the very beginning since, yes, the task didn't start yet. Yes, it will start in the upcoming months. And I will happy to have a follow-up in the coming months in order to let you know more about the Pan-Africa Agroforestry Hub.
Yeah, sure. But I was asking with a question too, because, for the task force, we are also planning to develop a platform, which would be like a collaborative and like a hub platform too, and we had connections with different research groups, and one was already developing the Reforest platform. So I don't know if you are familiar with this platform, and we're trying to discuss and to maybe we can take this opportunity to work all together, like in synergy, to end up with something really powerful and a hub that would be like trying to centralize what we're doing all together, So we could discuss about this in more details after the meeting, but there is certainly we will have opportunities to develop and make amazing connections.
And sorry, Claire, I saw a comment in the chat. I don't know if I should answer it now or later.
You can answer. From Joel, yeah.
Yes. So the comment is say, how do the living labs within the AfroGrow project practically engage local communities? So we have focal points in living in each living lab, and they are like taking, speaking with the farmers. We have forums, we make workshops with their needs. So all stakeholders, and also whereby policy, NGOs, etc. So throughout the whole project, they are involved, they are informed, and their voices are taken into account in the entire project. Yes, so this is how we involve them.
This is basically a definition of a co-creation process, working together at each step you identify in your project, basically. So thank you so much, Zampella. So I'm going to give you the floor to Daphne. And Daphne, it's not a problem. I know that you have to leave after that. So I promise you we're going to try to be in time. So I'm going to introduce you. So Daphne Kenman Gonka Gonda is going to present the TRANS-SAHARA project. She is a research scientist, from Technical University of Munich, and Daphne is an urban planner and research scientist at the chair of Urban Water Systems Engineering. Technical University of Munich's work focuses on integrated urban planning, the water, energy, food nexus, and multi-stakeholder processes across Europe, Africa, and Asia. She leads the Nexus TUM lab and coordinates the water, energy, food nexus field of study in the environmental engineering master's program with a background in urban planning, architecture, and urban design, and international research experiments in Germany, United States, and also Japan. So if you are ready, Daphne, oh yeah, I can see your slides already, so you can start.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for having me here today. So I would like to present our project TRANS-SAHARA. The title is Novel Water, Energy, Food Ecosystems, WEFI Nexus-Based Approaches Towards Agroforestry Management in the Greater Northern African Region. And thank you for the kind introduction as well. So our starting point is actually the urban context in these pictures. This is a typical case, in this case, India, Mumbai city, and Uganda, Kampala city, where there are huge amounts of waste streams available, organic waste and also inorganic waste, which is not being used systematically as a resource, and therefore creating a lot of environmental externalities and human and environmental risks. So in our project, in this water, energy, food ecosystems nexus approach, we're trying to connect between these waste streams and creating resources for ecosystem regeneration or restoration in the widest sense. So if we look at these waste streams in cities, what we see is that actually these are composed of very valuable resources. So what we see here is it looks like dirty water, but actually it's more than 99% water. Also in this water, we have organic waste, which is inherent energy. We can also consider this a source of nutrients, methane, and a lot of other very valuable substances. So if we look at a kind of resource gap globally, we see that there is also a big need for these kind of resources. So what we see here on the left is the data from Aquastat website of the FAO, which shows how much water is being recycled intentionally in the world, and it's actually, some countries are doing very well. They have water stress. For example, Cyprus and Israel are examples where water reuse rates are very high, but other countries like Germany, water reuse rate only less than 1%. But we know that with climate change we will face increasing drought conditions also in Germany. So water reuse is becoming more interesting in the European Commission for sure. Question is how to do it. There's also a huge clean energy gap, and there's also a lot of agricultural produce that turn into waste because of supply chains not being efficient. So what we try and do in our project here is to link these assets, so these waste streams, we consider them assets, and we link them with these opportunities. We define them as opportunity gaps for connecting the sectors, taking cross-sectoral approach. And how this translates in our living labs, into our living lab process in the end is to say that the way that infrastructure systems, in the widest sense, have been designed in the last 100 of years, and here you can see my background, and as you said, I'm an urban planner, so the way we design them is linear. We take resources from far away, we use them once, we create a waste, and if we're lucky, this waste is fit to be put back to environment. In most cases, however, even in Europe also, that's not the case. So we have externalities. It's just that in a city like Munich, we don't exactly see them the way that we do here. So the aim of TRANS-SAHARA is to try and facilitate something like a paradigm shift in where the wastes can be recovered through targeted technology interventions. So in this case, we can see an anaerobic digester in a container, which collect food waste in order to produce gas for cooking in a kitchen. So this is almost like saying this is a circular, decentralized, smaller scale system, which can enable sustainable business idea, where before there was no market for the recovery of these wastes. And there is a certain capital investment needed, and then we can hypothesize about what the value created is and how long it will take for this investment to amortize. So that's the backbone of Trans-Sahara, let's say. And just to, again, make it more clearly, the way that infrastructure systems have been conceived in the past is linear. So what we see in cities typically, or let's say in urban human-built environments, is that water, energy, and food resources go in, and some kind of waste come out. Wastewater, greenhouse gas emissions, food waste. But in a more circular system, we could consider that water, energy, and food will go in, and they will come out in other forms. So, for example, wastewater, which is treated to certain reuse standards, for example, for agricultural irrigation, for drinking, for car washing, for whatever. This, we can call it reuse water. We can call energy reclamation, for example, in form of biogas, and we can recover nutrients, for example, in form of organic fertilizer. And we can deploy these resources coming from cities for ecosystem restoration at the regional level. So in Trans-Sahara, we also work with living labs. We have different types of living labs. So we have 3 big living labs in Ethiopia, Ghana, and Tunisia. And you can see all of them in the map on the right. And we have 3 smaller living labs in Chad, Djibouti, and Senegal. So we are implementing bigger scale living labs in the 3 first countries. And then we're transferring them to the countries Chad, Djibouti, and Senegal, which are part of the UNCCT Great Green Wall Initiative. And the idea is to upscale through that initiative. And we also have a separate project, which is funded by someone else in Niger, which we are also developing a Nexus Living Lab in parallel to these living labs. So the way that the Nexus approach translates into how we're designing the living labs, and I'm really excited to see a lot of parallels to AfroGrow here, and I think there's a lot of space for these sister projects also to exchange and to think about a joint platform. It's a fantastic idea to pool forces, is again to say that the way that renewable energy or infrastructure systems are implemented also in the context of sub-Saharan Africa, which is our focus region, is to say that there is a lack of water. Therefore, we put solar energy in place in order to be able to tap deeper groundwater levels, and this requires electricity for pumping. So in our case study in Niger, we've been working since 2020. The groundwater level is at 180 meters below ground. So if you have more than 100 meters, you need electricity. You cannot pump it manually or using animals. Up to 100 meters, you can use a bucket and a rope and a donkey. So it's a big energy demand, and the more electricity we have, the more we will pump, the more this groundwater level is going to go down as well. So it's being overexploited using a linear infrastructure development process. At the same time, we have regionally a lot of flash floods happening. So this is water falling, which is running off, causing a lot of human and environmental risk as well. Yeah. And we try and create storage for this water to be stored, but that's not very effective either because it's expensive. So what we do in the living labs is to consider all of these resources as more of a closed loop approach. We're saying that if water is falling on this location, is there a way to store it? And the obvious place is the groundwater aquifer, because this is a huge underground storage place that's already existing and it's being depleted. So what if we try and refill that directly and indirectly using stormwater, which in theory bring up the groundwater level, which will save water for pumping. So here's more water in the soil and enable the indirect managed aquifer recharge. We also want to regenerate the soil. The humus, which is missing from our living lab locations, we're trying to bring back through perennial grasses and so on, so that the soil itself can absorb more water. And this in turn, healthier soil, is also, of course, going to augment food security. So that's where the water, energy, food connection is. And these healthier soils are also more able to store carbon. So that is also the water, energy, food ecosystem connection, also making the connection directly between climate change adaptation and mitigation. So we actually argue in this project also that climate change adaptation and mitigation are like two sides of the same coin, because they are directly linked as well. So generally, the Nexus approach argues that it's not just a sectoral connection which is needed in order to enable resource recovery. It's not just about technologies, but when we talk about how to integrate innovative technologies into communities, of course, we also need to think integrating different actors and stakeholders. So there are like 4 different dimensions needed to operationalize this water, energy, food ecosystems nexus approach. So the second dimension is the integration of different people at different levels and also business opportunities to incentivize resource recovery. The third dimension is what we call the integration of spatial scales. So, of course, different resources are procured at different spatial scales. Some are local, some may be regional, some may be national or global. And the resource recovery, therefore, also has to be considered at different scales, especially if we try and link them. So what we're trying to achieve in the end is what we call the urban-rural symbiosis, a balance between urban resource demand and rural supply that can support the achievement of the SDGs. And we also need to think about integrating different levels of governance in order to make targeted policy recommendations. So what TRANS-SAHARA tries to do is that we are implementing nexus, we call them nexus safety committees at the local level, but also at national level, so that the project can accompany what we call nexus institutionalization process along with a capacity building exercise. And this is what our Nexus training looks like. So I've been working on this for a long time, since 2010. We had this Nexus training already implemented at the World Urban Fora long time ago, 2010 and 2012. But after that, we went to the UN Habitat World Urban International Urban Training Center in Korea. We also had a few instances of implementing the training with and without GIZ, let's say, in real world settings. So we are rolling this out in TRANS-SAHARA as well. And here to close is a picture of the consortium, and I hope I didn't go over time too much. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Daphne. Thank you for the nice presentation. We're on time, moreover, and maybe I can take like 2 minutes to ask you questions, you know. So thank you for the presentation of the nexus, the circular systems and all that. I was not so familiar with this concept, and I do believe this is a really cool in practice, like, you know, and it's involving like diverse partners, I guess, like I'm thinking about industrial partners and all that, and I do like the idea. I like to integrate this diversity of partners and in your project. So just one thing, you mentioned that you are doing trainings and all, you're organizing trainings. My first question would be, maybe, do we have an access, do you have a public access to those trainings, meaning like, are you recording things, sessions? Just to mention, we have an info letter with the task force, and so if you have like events you want to share, our trainings and all that, of course we would be happy to like share the information via our info letter. So it was my first comment. And the second, my question would be like, you were working on 7 living labs, if I'm not wrong, like 6, but 1 in synergy, you know. So I was just wondering what criteria you used to select maybe those living labs, because I do believe it requires like a certain facilities. You probably need the technology to develop your project with the specific objectives. So it was my question.
Thank you very much. So on the first point, yes, that sounds great, and I'll be happy to come back to you on that one, because we are going to roll out these trainings this year. So we don't have like a concrete agenda for it yet, but happy to come back on that one. As for the choice of the living lab location, so what we did was that we had different processes in the 3 big living lab locations, Ghana, Ethiopia, and Tunisia, because their boundary conditions are completely different. So in all cases, we identified a region that is facing water stress, whilst at the same time having a significant amount of precipitation, to enable this managed aquifer recharge idea that I showcased, because that's really the backbone of the whole project. But one big problem in the whole region is that there's very little information available on the groundwater levels or where the aquifers are, like the local aquifers. So we had to use some not very perfect information generally to hone in on the regions. Then in Tunisia, there was a process that was top-down. So what the Tunisian team did was that they engaged representatives of all the different ministries and got them all into a room for 2 days in order to verify that the region is of interest, that we pre-selected, and to also raise awareness and to basically procure permission to engage with the local community. And then a number of local communities were discussed, and one of them was chosen. So in each place we have chosen one community for engagement, one community which is like a control community, which is similar but will be regarded parallel, and a backup community in case something goes wrong in the first one that cannot be foreseen, like a political or natural cause. In Ghana, the process was more bottom up. So we're working with the local NGO in northern Ghana, and what they did was to call a conference with local leaders in the target region.
I'm going to leave the stage to our last speaker today for the next project called GALILEO. So Olivier, thank you for being with us today. So you are the coordinator of the GALILEO project, and you are a French senior scientist at CRAAFT, Agricultural Research for Development. You are focusing on tropical agroforestry, bioclimatology and modeling, with some interest also on hydrology and proxy sensing as well. You've been PI of several FluxNet AD covariance sites in the tropics, and if I'm up to date, you are currently posted in Senegal to work on Sahelian agro-silvo-pastoral systems. So the floor is yours, Olivier. You can start. Quand tu es prêt.
Merci, Claire. So we are going to present specifically the multi-actor approaches in GALILEO. And first of all, I would like to introduce CRAAFT because few people know CRAAFT. CRAAFT is an international institution based in Montpellier in France. And we work in more than 50 countries around the tropics, where we are about 1,700 staff. And we have some regional offices in various countries in Africa, in Latin America, and in Asia. So think about CRAAFT for your next project consortium. CRAAFT is eager at participating and will consider all your offers. And I know that Ioannis already invited CRAAFT in one of his projects. Thank you, Ioannis. As you said, Claire, but I wanted to link with you, Claire, because you're a tree physiologist. That's why I put this slide here, and Philippe as well. So I'm a field physiologist. I worked in Burkina Faso a long time ago, here on measuring water pressure in plants. Okay, then on Mediterranean systems with eddy covariance and ecophysiology, bioclimatology. Then in coconut groves, this was in Oceania. Then it was 10 years in Costa Rica in a coffee agroforestry system. The goal is always to link the physiology with the agronomy, the productivity of the crop and of the trees. And last 10 years in Senegal on typical agroforestry parklands. And I'm still in Senegal now. So this is to link with you, Claire, and I hope we have more discussion about it. Okay.
Pleasure.
So this famous call on agroforestry was on Africa agroforestry management for climate change, adaptation and mitigation. And of course, at the center we have those multi-actor approaches, for which I'm not familiar with, but now I work a lot on it. And I have a lot of very good colleagues to help us, of course. And the overall goal was around ecosystem services, soil carbon sequestration, water, erosion, soil nutrients, pollination, biodiversity, but of course around productivity, profitability, and sustainability. And this is how we arm this Galileo project around. So we have a total of 8 living labs. It's not a competition between us, of course. And what is noticeable is that Senegal is in common between our 3 sister projects, and especially with ISRA and UCAD. I think we should make something for the cluster in Senegal, don't you think? But in Senegal, so we have two living labs. One is silvopastoral, so it's North Senegal, with pastures, herders, livestock, and trees, of course. And another one is agro-silvopastoral. Again, we have the 3 components, including the crops. So this is a dry ecosystem. And we have another dry ecosystem here in Kenya, where AfroGrow has a living lab as well. So this is on the slopes of the Mount Kenya at Embu. And this is a dry agroforestry system with living hedges and livestock. And these 2 ecosystems are one category, and we have another category. This is wetter ecosystems, but submit to drought sometimes. We have cocoa agroforestry here that we study in Ghana, in the south of Ghana, and in Cameroon. So this is cocoa under forest. So this is two categories of ecosystems that we are trying to compare by pair at least, and we have partners in every single country, of course. So I wanted to give you one example of one objective that we have. So this is one example of a narrative. Is around living fences at the crossroads of integrated solutions. So we are trying to promote a lot the development of living fences because living fences produce forage, and they have in dry areas we choose species which are deeply rooted. With a lot of advantages. They're supposed to increase the water infiltration in the soil. They're supposed to minimize the wind erosion and also runoff. They are supposed to help recharging the water table. And if you choose various species, then you can have forage, fruits, wood, other products. And one of the products is the forage, of course. So the main idea here is to have deeply rooted species that produce forage during the dry season. And this forage is supposed to be used to feed the livestock, because livestock is actually the bank account of the farmers. And one of the main limitations is the availability of food and water for the livestock. So one of the main ideas is to create a fence with forage to feed the livestock. Another idea is to practice catch cropping at the end of the dry season to extend the productivity of the place beyond the time of the rainy season when people grow the main crop. So it's possible to make catch cropping just after, especially inside hedges. The other idea is to enhance the labor, of course. Unemployment during the dry season is a major issue in the dry areas, because the young people, especially, they leave the rural areas and they go downtown, they migrate. So we try as much as possible to create markets and activities during the dry season to keep them in the place. Okay, that's it. This is one example of the rationale that we try to develop, but it's quite typical. What about the approach of Galileo, starting from the context that you all know, starting on multi-actor partnerships, of course. We have what is original, or I don't know if it is original, but let's talk about it. We have three categories of actors. We have some innovative actors. These people, they pre-exist the project. They all already have developed innovation that work, and we are very happy to include them in the design. We have some control actors. These people, they don't change the system during the course of the project, but we use them as control. And in the middle, we have what we call the target actors. These are people who accept to modify their system during the course of the project. So the main idea is to compare target and control. And we have these innovators, actors with which we can organize the field schools, for example. So we have also these living labs, okay, and we also have some innovation platforms, more, let's say, at the national level or international level. To try to explain to you how this makes ensembles, the blue area here is the living lab. Let's say I will be very practical here. Let's say it is 50,000 people. Of course, we don't speak with 50,000 people. So the first thing we did is to sample these people, and through what we call key informant people. These are people who are very well known in the living lab. They already have initiatives. They know perfectly well their environment, their system, their customs, etc. And we have select, let's say, 25 stakeholders like this that we call key informant people. They are like representatives of the whole living lab. And with these people, we organize the workshops. And these are our advisors. And these people, they select what are the best scenarios for them. These are the people we are doing the co-creation with, assuming that they represent the rest of the whole living lab. And apart from this, which is more like a consultative array, we have the real farmers. So, and we identify the innovative farmers, the target farmers, and the control farmers. And the control farmers are not supposed to be in contact with the people where we organize field school. This is to avoid contamination. We don't want that during the course of the project, these people turn from control to target. But if they do, it's not a problem. Then we incorporate them and we select other control farmers. But with these farmers, this is really the place where the project is implemented in the field with field schools, experimentations. These are not the same people as the advisors. Okay. So now I will tell you about the approach that we have been following during the first year of the project. So everything now is done. The first step of the co-creation was a diagnosis. So this is the time where we make some surveys with the key informant people individually. We stayed with them, with each of them for 2-3 hours with a questionnaire. And we tried to summarize their vision of the future of their living lab in a context of changing global changes, let's say. So we made a first report on this. When we finished with this report for every single living lab, then we started with an inception workshop. And then we grouped all these people in the same room in the municipality, let's say. And then again, we summed up all the results from the interviews, and we started to verify their engagement into the action of imagining the future for the living lab and defining solutions and defining innovations towards adaptation. After we finished this workshop, we made again a second report, synthesis and report, etc. And then we went for the third time to organize a scenario games with these farmers. And this is really the place where we define the scenarios, what we called scenarios ex ante. These are the scenarios that are co-created with them, all the stakeholders and the researchers, and where we select what we are really going to do in the Galileo project. Actually, it's quite a challenge to do that, because on one side you have the researchers in the project, they want to start immediately. And they want to do their own field of work immediately in the field. Okay, and I have to slow them down all the time. No, please participate first to the workshops. Read the reports or participate, it's even better. And we will design the field experiments only after the scenarios have been identified by the stakeholders. And this took 1 full year. And it's quite challenging to keep the researchers inactive during 1 year, to make sure that they will really work in the scenarios that the farmers wanted. And of course, behind the idea is to maximize the chance of adoptability at the end of the project. But it was very, very difficult to do. So now the scenarios are completely identified and prioritized with votes, etc. And now we are entering the phases of implementation in the field, and we are implementing also the evaluation of the impact with the stakeholders, for instance. So all this methodology has been designed by our colleague Cynthia Maté in CIRAD. So, for example, these are the typical actions that we do with the stakeholders in the room. And a very important tool for us was the problem tree. The problem tree is what are the main problems in your living labs that you want to tackle? And second, what are the origins of this problem? What is the reason why you have this kind of problem here? And this took us just to design these problem trees. So in each living lab we have like 4 problem trees, let's say. One is around water, one is around finance, one is around regulations. For example, one is around crop productivity. We didn't design the solutions yet. It took us 2.5 days with the people sitting in the room, which is not easy to keep them in the room. And then a month later, we came back, and then 2.5 days again to imagine the solutions together. And okay, this is how we did that. The benefit of it is that we are more or less certain that the approach is really emerging from the stakeholders themselves. So we really let them talk and be creative, and then vote, and then just at the end we propose other ideas from researchers, but just at the end. Okay, so the last workshop was about scenario game. So scenario games, what is it? It is the objective is to identify a future a future for the living lab which is desirable. What would they like their living lab to be in the future? And from this selection of futures, then we design some. We select the drivers. What are the drivers to reach this future? And when we know the drivers, then we design the innovations. What kind of innovation should we put in place to achieve this desirable future? So this took us another 2.5 days of discussion, very active discussion with the stakeholders in each living lab. So the first year is finished now, and the second year is about implementation in the field with real farmers in real fields. And okay. So you have an example here in Ghana. You have this phase of elaboration of the challenges. Then you have phase of votes. The farmers, they come, they vote, etc. And then we select the priorities. And okay, this is an example in Ghana on cocoa agroforestry. Okay, and there is another component which is upscaling from the living lab to the whole country. So this is really upscaling at the level of institution, finding some important stakeholders at the level of institution, and also addressing the policies. The policies, they have quite a lot of bottlenecks, quite a lot of contradictions. Some regulations are facing other regulations, etc. The stakeholders are not aware of the regulations. So something that came out very frequently in the workshops was that we want to know what the regulation is. So we need more training about the regulation, how we can apply the regulation, or how we can use this regulation. I will give you one example. In the driest area, the herders are facing the farmers. There's a real contradiction between the practice of the herders who want an open space and the farmers, they want to close the space. So what are the regulations in such area, and how can we first know the regulation and then propose some modification of the regulations to create a common life between farmers and herders more comfortable. For example, in some areas, theft, robbery of animals is the first problem that they identify. It's not an agroforestry problem, it's a problem of living together with two kind of communities. And this is an extremely important issue. So around this issue, you have the herders on one side. They don't want to have fences, and on the other side you have the farmers. They want to get protected from the animals. So how do you imagine the landscape and the regulations to make sure that both of them find a better future? So there's a lot of compromise in there, and okay, I wanted to give you some real examples here, and I'm finished. Thank you.
What I would like to highlight, maybe it's going to be a question too, is like you are trying to, and I'm not sure to follow up on everything, every concept. You designated like target actors and innovative actors and control actors. So as far as I can understand, control actors are like farmers, like you have this kind of reference farmers, okay? But I would like to ask you, like in more details, why you distinguish those different actors and why you distinguish this in the context of your methodology. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay. First of all, I would like to encourage you, Claire, to jump into multi-actor approaches. It was a wonderful experiment for me. And now I regret I haven't done this all my life. Honestly, I should have spent 10-20% of my time doing this all the time, because it's really the feeling of you are in the real world and you're not in an academic exercise. Huh? And you have stunning questions that come out from these people that you would never have imagined before. And the other point is that sometimes we assume that we should leave the actors, the stakeholders, discuss by themselves, decide by themselves, and keep being muted. But now I don't believe so. I believe it's good to be muted all the time, except by the end, where you propose alternative solutions and then you test them. Because the stakeholders, they also want the researchers to participate and to give other ideas that they didn't see because they are in their world. And we have this chance to have more experience abroad in different countries, different solutions, etc. And this is an opportunity to share as well. We shouldn't put this forward, but we can put it at the end. And then some solution they don't adopt at all, but some they are really keen on. So it's very exciting when you have this exchange. You learn a lot from them. They have incredible ideas that I would never have had, and sometimes they would like to adopt an idea that is new for them. So I encourage you a lot to jump in this. It's fantastic. It's the first time that I felt, maybe we will have maybe a little impact of our research, and it is very, very exciting. Okay. Second question was technical. As scientists, we also need to have some displays where we compare situations. If we have control people, they represent the baseline actually. Control farms, they represent the baseline, what is happening today and in the past. And the target are the ones who agree to innovate in their system. For example, they put different species for agroforestry, they put fences, they collect rainwater, things like that. So it's good to have both to make a comparison. When we do the monitoring and evaluation, it's good to have the both categories. Then we can compare, and from comparison we can make evaluation and science as well. That's the main reason. So it's simple. It's for example, for publication, it's necessary to have a control. And now we have the innovative actors. They already act in the landscape. These are, for example, young people with new ideas, and they did something that works. And it is very, very exciting to see how they did it, how they were limited, and how they can share their experience.
Thank you again for the nice presentation. I would like to invite you all to subscribe to our newsletter, because we are sharing like every 2 months some news about the task force. So I'm sharing the links in the chat right now. So don't hesitate to join us and join the international network. For the 4 speakers today, I would like to mention something is I'm going to follow up with you so we can work together. And in particular, as we are creating right now this international network, I will follow up with the different living labs also that are working with you actively in your different projects. If they are interested in joining us, they will be able to do this officially. Okay. And of course, if you need more information about the task force, or we have a web page. So I'm just trying to those information and put it in the chat. So you can of course contact me directly, or we also have a Gmail email address with the task force. So this is in the chat right now. So don't hesitate to reach out, and so we can, of course, collaborate all together. If you would like to join the network, you can choose to present your living lab also, or your research initiative, which may include multiple living labs. So don't hesitate to contact us. We can help you how to organize scientific events also, for a future webinar. And finally, I would like to invite you to our third webinar, which will take place next April, focusing on the geographic theme of France, and in particular with the representation of a PEPR in French, so PEPR project, working on living labs and co-leaded by Arnaud Sergent and Christophe Promion in France. And we're going to have a presentation of Maxence Arnaud also, who is a deputy coordinator, who is helping for the methodology for the diagnosis process that we have already in place for the task force and for the international network. So would like to thank you all for this amazing presentation, your presence, and I think we're going to be ready to end this webinar. Thank you again for being here.